Welcome to Library Connection. I'm Mandi Cantrell, Youth Services Director at the B.B. Comer Memorial Library here in Sylacauga, Alabama. I've chosen some books, or a book from upstairs called Owney, the Mail-Pouch Pooch. It is a work of fiction, but it is based on actual events. And I hope you'll find this exciting. I thought it was a very interesting story. Owney, the Mail-Pouch Pooch by Mona Kerby. In the year 1888, on a cold, rainy October night in Albany, New York, a straggly terrier mutt wandered through the empty streets looking for a place to get out of the rain. He was so skinny his ribs stuck out. At the post office, the back door was open a crack and the dog squeezed inside. The room was warm and dry. He came to a pile of canvas bags. He sniffed around until he found just the right spot, where he circled twice, curled up, and went to sleep. The next morning, workers found the mutt on the mail pouches. He gave a mean, low-pitched rumble. The men talked to the dog and asked him his name, and the mutt glared. He sniffed, but he didn't bite. He seemed to like the smell of their blue wool uniforms. Days passed, the dog didn't leave, and no one came looking for him. So the men cleaned him up and gave him a name. They called him Owney. Owney settled in at the Albany post office. He patrolled the mail room, nosing out trouble. Rats and cats didn't stand a chance. He supervised the men as they sorted and bagged letters. Different men took Owney home, thinking that he might want a family. But Owney wasn't interested. Each time he made his way back to the post office and to his mail pouches. In the afternoons, when the men loaded the outgoing mail on the wagon, Owney stood guard. Then he hopped aboard for the ride to the train depot. With his ears up and his nose to the wind, he was alert to any danger. Once, when the men returned to the post office with the incoming mail, they discovered they were missing a small pouch. What's more, Owney was missing too. One man headed back to the train depot. He found the missing mail pouch. Owney was sitting on top of it. But when the man tried to get the bag, Owney growled. He showed his teeth and refused to give it up. The worker was out of uniform, and Owney was not about to turn over government property to just anybody. The man raced back to the office where he grabbed a canvas bag and located a friend in uniform. Together they went back to the depot and found Owney still guarding the U.S. mail. The men walked slowly up to Owney. He sniffed the bag. He sniffed the legs of the blue wool uniform. He lowered his ears, wagged his tail, and hopped off the pouch. After that, his pals bought him an official-looking collar with a tag that read, Owney, Post Office, Albany, New York. A few weeks later at the depot, as the train started pulling away, Owney chased after it. Running lickety-split, he leaped and landed in the mail car. The Albany men were sad. The train crew waved their hats. They were glad to have Owney aboard. All the way to New York City, Owney sat in the open doorway, seeing new sights and sniffing new smells. The Albany postman looked for Owney on the next train from New York, and the next, and the train after that. Days and weeks went by, but Owney didn't return. Several months later, the Albany postmen were at the train depot when, lo and behold, Owney jumped off the mail train. His friends asked him where he had been, but Owney just wagged his tail. After that, the men tied a note to his collar. Dear Railway Postman, Owney guards the U.S. mail. Will you let us know where he has been? Please attach your depot tag to his collar. And it wasn't long before Owney hopped another train. The next time Owney showed up in Albany, he had so many tags hanging from his collar that he could barely lift his head. The postal employees tried to remove some to make his load a little lighter, But Owney didn't like that. He growled. So his pals bought a harness that stretched across his back and around his chest. They spread his silver and brass medals all over his body instead of under his neck. This made it easier for Owney to walk, and he liked it fine. Owney took off again, crisscrossing the country on the mail trains. He visited New York City, Brooklyn, Boston, and Augusta, Maine. He saw Cleveland, Cincinnati, and Fort Wayne. He traveled to Chicago, St. Paul, Duluth, the Dakota Territory, Seattle, San Francisco, and Los Angeles. In Texas, he inspected Fort Worth, Waco, San Antonio, Houston, and Galveston. He hopped a train to Denver, Kansas City, Omaha, Memphis, New Orleans, Key West, Washington, D.C., and Baltimore. And Owney stopped at all the small towns in between. Some say he even inspected the trains and depots in Alaska, Canada, and Mexico. Owney guarded the mail and the men in their blue wool uniforms. If a railway man fell asleep when it was time to pitch out or pick up a pouch, Owney barked him awake. In those days, there were lots of train wrecks, but no train ever had an accident when Owney was on board. Railroad crews called him a good luck dog. Owney not only picked up tags from the railway postman, he also collected trinkets and coupons. Some read, "To his dog ship. Owney, call again. Good for 25 cents in furniture at S.A. Rathbun's Dry Goods, Pontiac, Illinois. 1 quart of milk at Nashville, Tennessee. Good for 1 drink or cigar from H.J. Theitz of Reno, Nevada." Owney didn't smoke cigars. He just wanted the trinket. He loved the jingling sound of his medals when he walked. Not everyone welcomed Owney. In Montreal, Canada, the dog catchers threw him in the pound. Then they wrote to the postal employees in Albany and demanded $2.50. Owney's pals paid the fine, and Owney was put on the next train home. No dog worked harder for the U.S. Postal Service. In 1892, Owney greeted the Republicans at their convention in Buffalo, New York. In 1893, he met with the Iowa bankers in Council Bluffs, Iowa. In 1895, he welcomed the chicken farmers at the Tacoma, Washington Poultry Association. But Owney was beginning to slow down. He was at least 8 years old, which is old for a dog, especially one that spent a lifetime jumping on and off trains. His friends decided to give him a trip around the world by mailboat. He had his own suitcase with a blanket, comb, and brush. Before Owney could travel, his pals had to make up a new mailing rate. They called it Registered Dog Package, and they attached this note to his harness. "To all who may meet this dog, Owney is his name. He is the pet of 100,000 postal employees of the United States of America. Treat him kindly." On August 19, 1895, Owney boarded the steamship Victoria in Tacoma, Washington. Since the mail was in no danger of falling off the boat, Owney didn't have to spend all his time supervising. He chased rats, and in the afternoons, he curled up on a mail pouch. In a way, he was still doing his job. When the ship arrived in Japan, the customs officials didn't know what to do with a traveling dog. They issued Owney an imperial passport with restrictions. He was not allowed to ride a horse to a fire. He could not rent a house. He could not scribble on buildings. Owney obeyed. After all, he was a U.S. postal employee. From Japan, Owney went to China and then on to Hong Kong. While his shipboard pals rode in rickshaws, Owney followed behind, keeping an eye on everything. He sailed up the Suez Canal, but he didn't get to stay long enough in Egypt to see the pyramids. He sailed into the harbor of Algiers on the Mediterranean Sea and then to San Miguel in the Azores Islands in the Atlantic Ocean. And finally, he arrived in New York City. Owney finished his world trip in his favorite way, by train. On December 29, 1895, he arrived back in Tacoma, Washington. His trip lasted 132 days. He wore 200 new tags, trinkets, and ribbons. He had gained 6 pounds. In 1896, at the San Francisco Dog Show, surrounded by fancy-looking dogs and their fancy-dressed owners, 2 postal employees stood at attention. One wore a blue wool uniform, the other his natural fur. The judge presented Owney with a medal, Greatest Dog Traveler in the World. In the spring of 1897, when the National Association of Railway Clerks invited Owney to their convention in San Francisco, he took one last trip. By now, he was missing some teeth and blind in one eye. Stiff-legged, he could no longer catch a moving train. In the huge auditorium, the curtains opened. Owney walked to the center of the stage. He was slow, but he still jingled with every step, and his shiny tag sparkled in the spotlight. The crowd leaped to their feet, roaring. For 15 minutes, they cheered, clapped, and whistled. After that, there was only one thing to do. Owney had to retire. His pals sent him home to the Albany post office, where his career as a mail dog had begun. He was given plenty to eat and a soft mail pouch where he could curl up and fall asleep. Sometimes on those long, sleepy afternoons, his nose twitched and his paws quivered. Maybe Owney was dreaming about the good old days of running lickety-split to catch a train and traveling the world. And here is a picture of the real Owney with some postman. It says, Owney was a great dog. Here he is at work, looking responsible and fierce as he guards 4 railway men and the mail. He was so famous that most of the major newspapers in the 1890s reported on his travels. So he was a pretty famous dog. When he died in 1897, his friends had a taxidermist preserve him and sent his body to the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C. And I think when you visit him there, you can rub his head for luck, they say. Thank you for joining me for this book. We're going to pause for a commercial break, and then we'll come right back. I've got another good book I'd like to share with you. Thanks.
While you're at home with family for the next few weeks, don't put off scheduling home repairs. Call Ox Foundation for a free estimate. With more time at home, you tend to notice things you haven't in the past. Mold and moisture in your basement or crawl space, uneven driveways, stair-step cracks in your exterior brick, uneven floors and doors. If your home is showing weakness, it's time to get strong. How strong? Ox Strong. Stay strong, Alabama.
We're facing unprecedented times, and prayer and positive thought are antidotes for our anxiety. Please continue your prayers for our medical profession, our leaders, our first responders, and those afflicted with this virus. My name is Mark Ledbetter, president of the Kusa Valley Ministerial Association, and I encourage you to reach out to local pastors for any spiritual or emotional needs. God will see us through these trying times.
Kusa Valley Medical Center, one of the top 10 hospitals in Alabama, is also Sylacauga's largest employer. Services from the emergency room, to surgery, to cancer treatment, to post-stroke care. You won't believe what's right in your backyard. It's Kusa Valley Medical Center in Sylacauga. So, if you're sick in Alabama, choose one of the top 10 hospitals in Alabama. That is Kusa Valley Medical Center.
Marble City Pharmacy in Sylacauga is your destination for the highest quality health care. Our knowledgeable pharmacists are always available for questions about your medications or advice on taking over-the-counter products and supplements. Our friendly staff can assist you in choosing from our full lines of compression hose and medical equipment. And don't forget our gift department. We have a great selection of unique gifts for every occasion. Stop by and see us today. Marble City Pharmacy, here for life.
A funeral service represents a family's final farewell to their loved ones. Knowing this, we go beyond what is expected to ensure the ceremony is beautiful and memorable, a truly fitting tribute to that special life. We invite you to visit us to meet our staff and tour our renovated facility complete with a new dining area and catering services. We've been serving the people of this area for over 40 years, and we think that you'll be pleased to find that making lasting impressions remains our first priority. Curtis & Son Funeral Home, Sylacauga, Childersburg.
WOTM is the television provider for all Alabama High School Athletic Association championship events and special programs. WOTM is your home for the Super 7 football, state finals basketball, baseball and softball state championships, the AHSAA weekly show, and WOTM also produced the first ever football playoff show, Super 7 preview show, and reclassification reveal show. Your exclusive home for all things AHSAA is WOTM. Contact your local cable provider to request WOTM to your channel lineup.
Things a little bumpy in your driveway? Ox Foundation Solutions has the expertise and the know-how to repair cracks, wet basements and crawl spaces, and uneven floors in your home. Ox Foundation Solutions will come up with the right fix for you. It's time to get strong. How strong? Ox Strong. Get a free estimate from Ox Foundations.
Welcome back. I know during this pandemic, a lot of events and things have been canceled or postponed, and it's got us really sad. But I'm really glad to hear that the Summer Olympics, which were originally scheduled for July and August of 2020 in Tokyo, Japan, have been postponed a year. They will be in the year 2021. They begin around the end of July and last for, I think, a couple of weeks, and then we'll finish up the first part of August. So they've been rescheduled for another time. I'm really glad, which makes me think of this book. That's why I chose this book. It's called Nadia, the Girl Who Couldn't Sit Still. The Summer Olympics has the swimming, diving, track and field, gymnastics, and a lot of events like that. And this is about Nadia Comaneci, who is a very famous gymnast. So let me read Nadia, the Girl Who Couldn't Sit Still by Karlin Gray. In a village in Romania, a country rich with forests and mountains, there lived a girl who couldn't sit still. She loved soccer, swimming, playing with dolls, and climbing trees. But she didn't just climb the trees. She swung from branch to branch until her family would call her home. Nadia! Nadia Comaneci was a feisty and fearless little girl. Once she got into trouble for trying on a pair of roller skates in a store and skating right out of the building. Another time, she couldn't wait for her father to tighten the screws on her new bicycle, and it fell apart as she rode away. And one year, she climbed up the Christmas tree to eat the candies dangling from the top and ended up underneath the fallen tree. Nadia, why on earth do you spend all your time climbing trees? Her grandmother asked her. Nadia answered simply, because they are here to be climbed. To find a place for all that energy, Nadia's mother signed her up for gymnastics lessons. When Nadia stepped into the gym, she felt a little overwhelmed by the big space and strange equipment. But she also saw plenty of room to jump, swing, and run. At school recess, Nadia and her friend loved to cartwheel their way around the playground. A gymnastics coach named Bella Caroli spotted them. Bella and his wife Marta asked the girls to join their new gymnastics school, and Nadia's parents agreed. 6-year-old Nadia liked her math and science classes at the new school, but she loved gymnastics the best. Bella and Marta taught her how to do a straight cartwheel on a line painted on the floor, then on a low balance beam surrounded by cushions, and finally on the high balance beam. Nadia practiced all her skills until she mastered them and moved on to learning more difficult moves. Soon Nadia was flying from bar to bar, from floor to vault, and high above the beam. When she was 9, Nadia traveled with Bella's team to her first National Junior Championships competition. After so much hard work and practice, Nadia had perfected her routines. But when she did a leap on the beam, Nadia fell. Angry and embarrassed, she tried again and fell again. With her ears burning, she tried a third time and fell for the third time. Nadia finished in 13th place. Disappointed but determined, Nadia continued to practice for many hours each day. And at the next National Junior Championships Games, she won first place. Nadia kept improving and competing, practicing and perfecting until she reached the highest competition. The Olympic Games. In Montreal, Canada, the best gymnasts from all over the world, including the Russian gold medalists from the previous Olympics, Olga Korbut and Lyudmila Turcheva, were ready to compete. Judges scored each athlete's performance on a rating system from 1, a terrible score, to 10, a perfect score. You all know what to do, Bella instructed his team. Remember what we practiced and make yourselves and your country proud. Then over the loudspeaker, now entering the arena for the 1976 Olympic Games, the Romanian team. On the first day of the competition, Nadia's team performed on the beam, floor, and vault. Nadia scored a 9.9, 9.75, and 9.7 on these events. Next, the Romanians took their turn at the bars, where Olga had scored a 9.9. Nadia mounted the bars. Now 14 years old, she was a long way from the forest in Romania, but she swung around as easily as she had jumped from branch to branch as a little girl. The audience gasped as she twirled and whipped and flipped. Nadia finished her routine by soaring through the air and landing perfectly on the mat below. The crowd exploded with applause. After a long wait, the scoreboard flashed a number, 1.00, a terrible score. Nadia looked at Bella, and Bella looked at the judges. The crowd watched in confused silence. "What is Nadia's score?" Bella asked. One of the officials held up 10 fingers as a voice announced over the loudspeaker, "Ladies and gentlemen, for the very first time in Olympic history, Nadia Comaneci has received the score of a perfect 10. The scoreboard had been programmed with only enough space to go as high as 9.99 because no male or female gymnast had ever received a 10.0. Nadia turned to Bella. "Is that really a 10? "You bet it is, Nadia." Bella smiled, and the audience went wild, clapping and cheering. But the competition was not over, so Nadia moved on to her next event and her next perfect 10. Again and again, Nadia's scores were perfect. When the competition ended, she had earned 7 perfect 10s. At the medal ceremonies, Olga and Lyudmila congratulated the new Olympic champion. Nadia won 5 Olympic medals, 3 gold, 1 silver, and 1 bronze, and became the youngest Olympic gold medalist in gymnastics ever. Reporters surrounded Nadia with questions. One asked her how it felt having the world's attention. "I feel just the same as before," she answered. One asked her if she had been confident she would win. "Yes, I was sure," Nadia said. And one reporter asked her when she would retire. "Retire?" she replied. "I'm 14 years old." When Nadia returned home, thousands of cheering Romanians, including the president of Romania, greeted her and her teammates. Now famous around the world, Nadia went back to Romania, back to her family, her school, and her gym, where she could fly from bar to bar, from floor to vault, and high above the beam. Even with all her achievements and medals, she continued to practice and aim for perfection. After all, Nadia was a girl who wouldn't sit still. I went back after I read this book and looked at some videos of Nadia earning those perfect 10s, and it's just amazing. She's such a young, petite little 14-year-old girl. I even read that she liked to take dolls with her, or maybe she would buy dolls at different places where she competed. And it says, as a girl, Nadia collected more than 200 dolls and often brought one to her gymnastics meets. When she was an adult, her foundation created a Nadia doll for 10 for Gymnastics, a program that raised money for Romanian children's gymnastics clubs. And she defected from Romania to the United States and married her friend and fellow Olympic champion, Bart Connor, and together they run the Bart Connor Gymnastics Academy in Norman, Oklahoma. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this, and we'll look forward to the Olympics a year from now. Please keep a check on our Facebook page or our library website. The library is now open, and we'd love to have you come in and get some books. Just keep a check on our Facebook page and our website for any changes that may be made to that. So thank you for joining me on Library Connection, and I hope to see you at the library very soon.